Welcome to Family Lifestyles. I'm Janey, Cline, Family Consumer Science Agent for Hart County. I have with me today a very special guest, Nancy Owens. She is from Allen County Extension Office, and you are the nutrition educator, I should say.
Nutrition Education Program Assistant.
Yes, and we are so glad to have you here today. You have a very special recipe for us today. It is tailgate caviar.
Yes.
It is a very diet-friendly, should I say, recipe.
Yes.
We're just coming off of the new year, and so, people are ready to give up those New Year resolutions, but this maybe could help us get started back. What do you think?
It could. And when you say tailgate caviar, first of all, it has no fish eggs in it.
Okay.
A lot of time when you say caviar, they think about that.
Right. That's
and
the first
I've
thing
had
I
a
think
lot
of.
of people that didn't want to try this recipe when I first started to make it because that's what they thought.
Right.
But this recipe is very friendly as far as when it comes to feeding a large crowd, and it's very cost efficient. It's only like $5 to feed 24 people.
Oh, wow.
And it's a fourth of a cup. You can make this and take it with you to like potlucks, or if you're going to like barbecues, things like that. This is a good side dish. And also we make this at my house, and I like to use maybe some chips and just kind of the tortilla chips, the plain ones, and kind of dip those in there and eat it with that.
Yeah.
So this is a really, but it has no fat in it. The only thing that it has is a little bit of sodium. It's got 160 milligrams of sodium in it.
Okay.
But other than that, we're good on the rest of the...
Okay. Well, great. Well, if you're watching your sodium, that really isn't as bad as it sounds. I mean, it is kind of high in sodium, but, a bag of chips or a bag of popcorn, movie popcorn, is going to be a lot more than that.
That's right. And it only has 90 calories.
Yeah.
So
very diet friendly. So how do we get started?
Well, what we're going to do is you're going to take and make sure that you get all the ingredients that have no salt in them. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a can of yellow corn that I've already drained that has no salt in it.
Okay.
And we're going to put it over into our bowl. And then you're going to put white corn.
Okay. So this is very easy to make, and maybe we could even make this with our children, couldn't we?
Oh, yes. And if you make it the night before and let it set, the flavors blend so well together, and they are just wonderful. And children love this recipe. I've made it several times in a youth class, and they love it.
Yeah.
And we put in some white corn, a can of black beans, and these are all 15-ounce cans.
Okay.
And these are our black-eyed peas. This was a 15-ounce can with no salt added. And then you're going to put in 2 10-ounce cans of, I get the original, but if you want a little more kick to it, you could get like the mild or the medium. But it's the diced tomatoes with the little green chilies in it.
Okay.
So we're going to put those in there.
So like the Rotel.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And is that just the regular tomato, or is that the Rotel as well?
What I got here was the Rotel, but you can get diced tomatoes with just the little green chilies in it if you want to. The reason I do the Rotel, I'm not very fond of spicy foods because it kind of, just don't like them. And my husband does. So when I make a recipe at home, I kind of make some for him where he's got the kick to it, and I make some for me. And I know that original Rotel has no, it's very light and it doesn't burn my tongue. So after we put all these together, what we're going to do is we've got 1.5 cup of very light Italian dressing. Okay. And then we're just going to, I like to kind of mix it a little bit before I put my dressing in there. And then we're just going to.
It smells so good.
It does. It's
I wish everyone
wonderful.
could smell this. It's just, the aroma is just unreal.
And then we put the 1.5 cup of the dressing in there.
Okay. I love all the colors too. It just looks so
It's a very
appealing.
beautiful recipe too. And they say that when you have the colors on the side of the plate, the more colorful your plate looks, the better you're going to come to eating it.
Yeah. Yeah, you for sure want the colors without a doubt. Looks delicious.
Okay.
So do we add any other spices? I know the Italian dressing has a lot of spice.
You can if you choose to. And I do have a little bit of salt to taste here that we can add in there if we want to.
Okay.
And if you left that salt out, then that's going to cause the recipe to even have less sodium in it.
Okay.
And then we have the garlic.
Okay.
And that was garlic powder. And we have a little bit of black pepper.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that was garlic powder. Could we use fresh garlic? Could we use...
You could. You could use fresh garlic. I know that when you do use the minced garlic or the fresh garlic, it does give it a lot more flavor.
Okay.
But sometimes when you're working with families that are low income, they're going to come more near having the garlic powder in their cabinet. So...
yeah, well, that looks delicious. You know, I have a recipe that is very similar to this, and it has the green onions in it.
You can. And this needs to be topped off with a little bit of cilantro.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yes, but we didn't have any at the store today, so.
Okay. And you can substitute, you know.
You can.
You were saying you didn't have any cilantro, so you don't necessarily have to put that in. No. And a lot of people don't like the taste of cilantro.
That's right.
I actually do. I prefer it, but a lot of people don't.
See, I don't.
Yeah. So it's fine to leave that out, you know,
is.
and substitute a few things here and there. Like I was mentioning, the fresh garlic, you know, a lot of times you have to have more fresh garlic than you would like the garlic powder or the minced garlic or something like that. So, yeah. What about like some basil or something like that? Do you think that would be good in here?
Probably. I mean, basically the cilantro is just kind of to give it a little bit of color.
Right, yeah.
So
I just like flavor.
I do too, and I kind of experiment at home
I do.
all the time with flavor.
And I think that's what's important with cooking is that you do, you know, kind of experiment and look at what, you know, your taste buds are. And as the older I get, the more I need that flavor because, you know, things that are bland, I'll tend to eat a whole lot more of that than I will just something that has a lot of flavor and all of that. You mentioned the chips, eating the chips with it. Can you get low sodium chips maybe that would...
You can, but I tell you, if you go by any of the extension office, we have actually a recipe for tortilla chips.
Okay.
To where you take like the flour tortillas themselves and you can put those in the oven and bake them. So there's, you know, if you can't find what you want in the grocery store, there's always, you can research it and make it yourself. I do that sometimes myself when I'm trying to watch our sodium at the house with my family. I have a daughter that's 16 and, you know, that's important as they start getting older.
Yes.
And so we take and we'll bake the tortilla shells in the oven.
Okay. Yeah, I've made those with some of my 4-Hers, you know, that come in and we do like a cooking program or whatever. And we actually put cinnamon and sugar on them and we make like a fruit recipe. But I can see how that, you know, just using them as just a regular chip, that would cut down on so much sodium. And it would actually be a lot less expensive too.
It would, because most of the time you have some of those left over at home.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing this recipe with us. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and you're going to share some other things with us. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack.
Tommy?
Go get him.
Don't stop. Keep playing. Here we go. Here's the fun part.
Did you do this?
Great job.
Encouragement. Pass it on. A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. I'm Janey Cline, Family and Consumer Science Agent for Hart County, and I have with me Nancy Owens. She is from the Allen County Extension Office, and you do a lot of nutrition education in your office, don't you?
Yes.
That is pretty much your sole job, is just doing nutrition education, correct?
Yes, it is with adults and youth.
Okay. And so you run into a lot of times people, maybe they either don't have dressing at home or maybe they just really can't afford it that month. Maybe they're out. And so I know you have a recipe here today that you can make from things you have at home. Oh, in the first segment, we made a tailgate caviar and you used some Italian dressing, but we could substitute this, couldn't we?
We could. You can substitute the Italian dressing with, and that would help cut back on that sodium. We were talking about that recipe earlier. So all you need to do is to have 1 cup of oil, and we're going to make our own dressing today.
Okay.
And this will cover 21 people.
Okay.
So add a tablespoon per serving. And
so I know you mentioned that the recipe would cover 24, and this will cover 21. Is that going to be an issue?
Well, what you have to have, even though, and the reason I said this would cover 21 is if they made this recipe for something else.
Okay. So like if I were going to
because
use
you
it
only need 1.5 cups of the dressing to go into that recipe.
Okay.
So regardless of whether we're making this homemade recipe, and I know this serving size is 21 and that's 24, but you just need to make sure you have 1.5 cups measured out to cover that recipe.
Right. So you probably wouldn't use all of this.
No.
So, okay. Yeah.
So we have our cup of oil, and then we're going to put in 1/3 cup of red wine vinegar.
Okay.
And then we're going to put in a teaspoon of garlic powder.
Okay.
And a teaspoon of onion powder. And then I have here a teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. They're just together.
Okay.
Okay? And then you'll just take that and kind of mix it.
Now, would I need to let this sit for a little while to let those flavors blend together before I actually used it? Or could I just use it right away?
Well, you could use it right away, but if you want the best taste and the best quality of it, then it needs to sit for just a little bit. That's like with the tailgate caviar. The longer that sits, the better the taste is going to be.
Yeah.
So anytime that you mix anything together like that, depending on when you make it or need to use it, it's always best to let it sit overnight.
Okay. To let those seasonings and stuff blend together. Okay. How long would this keep in the refrigerator, do you think?
This would keep in the refrigerator. It's got a vinegar base to it, so it's going to be kind of hard for it would be more like a regular Italian dressing or something like that.
Okay.
So it would keep in the refrigerator for quite some time.
Okay. We don't have an expiration date on it, though, so maybe we wouldn't need to leave it like a year or anything.
No.
Yeah, maybe just a month or something like that. And you could kind of mark on your container when you actually made it up. You might go a little longer than that, but I tend to err on the side of safety versus, leaving it for a longer time, if you just weren't using it that often. And a lot of people don't use dressing that often. I know I don't. I tend to find my dressings that are in the refrigerator that I have to throw out about half of it. So this would actually be good because you could make half of this recipe, cut this recipe in half if you are a person that doesn't use a lot of dressing or whatever. You could cut that in half, and then that way it wouldn't, spoil as fast or whatever. Or you might use it up. Hopefully you would use it up beforehand.
You could.
So, yeah, that is a great idea. What's some other things we could use with dressings? We talk about, as we mentioned, the caviar and that type thing, and we think of the lettuce and we think of, things like that. But, sometimes I'll get out a potato, and like a baked potato. And instead of the butter and sour cream for that flavor, I will put something like that. I know this sounds odd to you. You're sitting here looking at me like, what is this lady talking about? But that gives it the flavor, and I don't, how many calories is in this? Do you know?
I'm not for sure.
Okay, but normally they're a lower, if they're a vinegar based,
Yes.
it's a lot lower than, say, a ranch dressing or a blue cheese or something like that, that has that cream base to it. Usually that vinegar base is a lot less calories. So,
and my daughter, she'll take, I know you were talking about using it on the baked potato. My daughter takes some cream cheese and puts a little Italian dressing in it and mixes it up, and that's her dip for her chips.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You could make a dip out of it. There's several things that you can do with dressing.
Yeah, and I think we just often limit ourselves, like I said, to the salad, the traditional salad of the lettuce and, tomatoes and cucumbers and all that, which is wonderful. But there are a lot of other ways that you can use dressings, especially lower fat dressings, to add that flavor to foods that, will really help out with that diet. We mentioned early on that we're really struggling at this point because the new year seems like it's time to break this. I'm tired of this diet.
Yeah.
As most people did. So, finding new things and experimenting with, different flavors and that type thing really helps out on those diets, don't it?
It does. And don't limit yourself, just buy the grocery store dressings. There's always simple and healthier dressings that you can make at home with just a little red wine vinegar and a few ingredients added together. And you can put those on sandwiches. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can use them.
I actually found a dressing. It was in a big box store, but it had basil and a couple of other things, and it was only like 30 calories per tablespoon, which was awesome, And I actually sent my niece, because it was a big box store that's only in Lexington and Louisville. So I sent my niece, and she drove me some down here all the way from Louisville. So I was very thankful for that. But, there are a lot of dressings out there. We just need to look at the calorie count on them and the fat content and that type thing. And you don't have to necessarily steer away from them. My daughter always has been one that, she never eats dressing on a salad because she started out originally, trying to watch her calorie count and that kind of thing. So she just cut it all out. But she's missing out on a lot of that flavor.
That's right. And always make sure that you read your labels.
Right.
That's really, really important when you're wanting to check your calorie count and the fat content of it and the sodium. Always read your labels.
So what would be more important, if I had to have fat, calories, or salt content, which one should I look at first, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
That would really depend upon your health, because if I stood here and told you that you needed to watch the fat content of it and you've got high blood pressure, then that could be, something I'm steering you in the wrong direction. So it would really depend upon your health. If you're having to watch your fat content, then I'd go for the fat part of it. If you're having to watch your sodium because you have high blood pressure, then I would check the sodium part of it out.
And something that I just thought of is that a lot of times dressings have a lot of sugar in them.
They do. A lot of our condiments that we use have a lot of extra sodium and they have a lot of extra sugar in them.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this recipe with us. And the Extension Office has a lot more recipes similar to this. So just stop by. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk with Nancy a little bit more about her program that she offers at Allen County.
Another summer day has come and gone away from Paris or Rome, but I want to go home. Maybe surrounded by a million people, I still feel all alone. Just wanna go home. Oh, I miss you, Let me go home. I've had my run, baby, I'm done. I gotta go home. It'll all be alright. I'll be home tonight. I'm coming back home.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. I'm Janey Cline with Family and Consumer Science Agent at Hart County, and I have with me Nancy Owens, and she is from Allen County. And Nancy, you do some wonderful work with a great audience. Can you tell me just a little bit about it?
I sure can. I do, right now I'm doing a session called Cooking Through the Calendar.
Okay.
And I work with low income and at-risk families that receive SNAP benefits. And I'm required to do 7 classes with them. And so I can do up to 12, but I'm required to do 7. And what we do basically is we come into the extension office and we'll take and cook a recipe. And once we cook the recipe, we talk about the nutrition factors of it. And we talk about, how we watch our fat. And I teach them some food safety in there along with it. Okay. And I do that 4 times a month.
Okay. So what are your dates that you do that? You said 4 times a month. Mm-hmm. So is it on Monday, Tuesday?
Normally it's the second Tuesday of each month and the third Wednesday of each month.
Okay.
Is when I do it. And I have a class at 9:30 that morning and 1:30 that afternoon.
So it's the same thing is repeated all of the 4 sessions, right?
It is. That way, in case someone was to have to go, to the doctor or have, something to come up and they couldn't be there that day, they could know that they've got 4 chances to catch my class.
Okay. Okay. And you said it was cooking with the calendar. We have these calendars in our extension offices, and a lot of people have come to learn about them. We were just talking about how fast they're going because everybody loves them. But the calendars actually have some really good tips in them, don't they?
They do. They do. They talk about produce in there and when it's available. It also talks about some substitute when you're doing your cooking. If you may not have a few things there at the house, it talks about other things that you can substitute in there.
Yeah, when we live in rural areas, sometimes that is a real problem, it helps that they've come out with some big box stores that are in the local areas. But, when I live out in the country, so it would be like an hour, not an hour, but a 30-minute drive for me to go in. And I'm not going to do that for, let's say, a cup of self-rising flour. So this gives me the substitution of, a cup of all-purpose flour plus a teaspoon and a half of baking powder and salt. Mm-hmm. So, and I probably am going to have all of that, if I don't have my self-rising flour. So those are some great things. It also looks like we have availability charts here.
It does. It does. It tells you when the produce is going to be available at your local farmer's market.
Okay. Okay, yeah. And then we get to our recipes, and this is what you were talking about with the cooking with the calendar. So in January, I'm assuming you made the citrus chicken stir fry?
I sure did. Okay,
was it good? I've not had the recipes.
It was absolutely wonderful.
Okay. Yeah, the recipes are really, really good. I have had the hearty comfort soup?
Yes, that's what we're doing this month, and I've already made this recipe 3 times already, and I'll be making it today at 1:30 back at the office, and they absolutely love this.
Okay. It has ground pork in it, which is kind of unusual, but we were talking about it. We actually made this for a homemaker leader lesson at Barron County last week, I think, and the agents, we were talking about the ground pork and how little fat cooked out of that ground pork.
That's right.
So, that might help with watching the fat content or whatever. And it has an unusual thing, and that is kale in it, doesn't it? Am I correct with that?
It does. It does have kale in it. And I'm one of those people, I don't like the texture of kale when it's raw, but I like the texture of kale when it's cooked in a soup like this.
Yeah. It was delicious. It really was. Well, I won't go all the way through this. Ooh, breakfast hash. That sounds good. I won't go all the way through this, but every month you'll have a different recipe, and a lot of the extension offices do cook through the calendar like that. So
yes, and always remember too, in the very back of the recipe, some people don't want to keep up with the calendar because they're thinking it's so big, and after they get ready to get rid of it. But this also has every recipe in the back of it, and it's perforated edges so that you can kind of cut those out and put them in your recipe box.
Oh, how neat. That is really neat. There's just so many helpful tips in the calendar. But you also have a lot of other incentives you can give out.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Once you start my class, the first thing I do is I give you a binder, and inside of the binder you will get some These are recipe holders to hold all your recipe. You get recipe cards, all the information each time you come. You'll get a different lesson to go into it. And then what I like to do is I like to be able to use things in my kitchen at the office. And when you see me use those, I like to be able to give those to you to take back home so you can be more self-sufficient in your kitchen. So maybe you need the expandable measuring cups, or you might need the little measuring spoons, or this is a 4-in-1 tool. This is a favorite of mine. And I also give out like the little oven holder, the little pot holders. So there's and we give out information too. You know, like this tells you how long to cook the meat that you're cooking. A magnet to go on the fridge, and we have different types of strainers. There's one program that I do to where you can look at what you're eating during the week. I give you this.
Okay.
You write out your menu plan for a week, including your snacks, and you get a dry erase pen with this. And if you'll make your list from the grocery store and go buy it when you're using this, it will help you cut back on your costs too.
Yeah, if we would meal plan, it just helps so much. Just going into the grocery store and you grab this and you grab that and you grab something else, and then you get home and you really don't have the ingredients you need to make anything.
That's right.
Is what happens to me. So meal planning is so important if you're going to save money. You know, because like I said, you'll have things you don't need, and that's another trip back to the store. So then you're grabbing stuff again, and so you'll spend a whole lot more money that way.
And never go to the grocery hungry.
Yeah.
Whether you eat a peanut butter and cracker or whatever you eat before you go, never go hungry, because I buy a whole lot more when I go in and I'm hungry.
I do as well, and don't take your husband, because he tends to buy those sweet things, or mine does anyway. So you had talked about the incentives, but this right here to me is a wonderful.
Oh, it is.
And we have a, sorry, I can't reach it there.
That's
there we
okay.
go. We have a green one and a red one. Why would we have a green one and a red one?
Well, one of the reasons that you want to do is you don't want to cross-contaminate your food. So we have the green one for your vegetables when you're cutting them up, and we have the red ones for your protein. And then that way you've got two different cutting boards, and you're not taking a chance, but you want to make sure, I don't want to cut my fruits and vegetables here with my meat over here and my juice from my meat running down onto my fruit and vegetables.
So even if they were on different cutting boards, you still could get some cross-contamination.
That's right. So you want to make sure that you keep whatever you're cutting, your meat and stuff, prepare that separately and have no liquids or juice running, and make sure you wash your hands after you finish with those meats before you start cutting up your fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, I love these cutting boards because you can, cut on them, and then you can bend them and pour them in.
You can.
And that's what I love about them. And they're also, like if you are limited on space, these really help out with that. So what great tips. And as you mentioned, if you come take a class, you possibly could get one of these incentives at your
and
at
it's all
any of the
free.
extension offices.
It's all free. You never pay for anything. We take care of everything. All you have to do is just show up and spend a little time with me.
Awesome. And you also have we have those programs in all the extension offices. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have had so much fun. I can't wait to taste the tailgate caviar. And so please go to your extension office and find the recipes and take advantage of some of these things we have. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great day.